to the fall, 2014 Percussion Extravaganza in our newly renovated Richardson Auditorium. Thank you. This space has for years been the home for music concerts and various other events, and we were fortunate enough to be able to have a lot of work done, obviously, on the whole building, which is still under construction. But to actually be able to get into this space for tonight's concert was a little nerve-wracking, to be perfectly honest, because it was still pretty much under construction up until a few days ago. And tonight we are sort of the test subjects for a lot of the technology, the new technology that's in here. The lighting system in here is honestly more high-tech than anything I've ever seen, and we had a training on it, and we were all like, okay, in about 5 years, hopefully we'll know how to use this. So tonight we'll be experimenting with a few different things as far as that goes, and same thing with the audio and the visual projection system. You'll be seeing some stuff later tonight with that. The piece you just heard, Ionisation, was written in 1931. And premiered March 6, 1933 at Steinway Hall in New York City. And it was there were some pieces that were written for percussion only, percussion ensemble, that were either part of a collection or came from out of a symphony or an opera. But this was the first piece that was written exclusively for percussion ensemble, and really has made a career for me, a future career for these students here, and completely changed the dynamic of percussion education and percussion performance. And this was way back in 1933. The composer Edgar, born in France and spent most of his life in the United States. This piece in particular, for percussionists and percussion educators like myself, it's sort of that holy grail piece that you always wanted the opportunity to play. And this year, having 13 percussion majors, this piece requires 13 players. It was perfect, and I had the opportunity to program it, and very grateful to be able to do so. You heard a lot of interesting sounds that were maybe unique to a concert hall, two of which are the sirens that you heard, and which create some very long sounds. There are very short sounds. There are wood instruments. There are skin instruments. There are metallic instruments. There were instruments that were struck, rubbed, scraped, all the things that we do in percussion. So Ionisation literally had it all. And I'm very excited to have had the opportunity to share that piece with these students this evening. The next piece is something completely different, and it's a piece written in the mid-1970s by a Danish composer by the name of Andriessen. And the piece is for any group of loud-sounding instruments. So we have that covered here, and it's actually, we all more or less have unison rhythmic figures. There are a few spots where we divisi, we split into part one and part two, but more or less, this entire piece of Workers' Union is intended to be played as one. Andriessen was going through a bit of a socialist phase during his life when he wrote this, and the idea was that regardless of the individual, the sum of the whole will always make this piece continue on. And it's a very, my students can attest to this. You look at it, you're like, oh, it's a bunch of rhythm repeated. Okay, we can do this without too much trouble. As it turns out, it takes an immense amount of concentration. And I know for me, when I rehearsed with them for the first time in a while last night, I was covered in sweat and anxiety by the end because of the excitement and the pure rhythmic drive involved in this piece. It looks like we're getting close. If you haven't been to one of our concerts before, you'll hear from me a bit as we make set changes. And I generally just, I'm not talking necessarily because I really want to, but because I'm just making sure everything's good to go up here. So tonight we have percussionists. We've added guitar and flute to the mix to add some more melodic and harmonic content to the piece. Every realization of this piece that I've seen or heard is completely different. And so tonight's performance in and of itself will be very unique, and our instrumentation as well is quite unique. So this piece is titled Workers' Union. Ionisation actually inspired Frank Zappa to write music and go into music, and Frank Zappa said inspired Louis Andriessen. So there's a little bit of a Frank Zappa thread, and if any of your Zappa fans, maybe that last piece, maybe you saw a bit of a connection. And with Ionisation, it was pretty much all about organized sound. There was a lot of different layers, a lot of different textures. This last piece we just did was all about organized rhythm, and a little less interest in the organized melody or harmony involved. The piece we're switching to next is actually gonna harken to folkloric traditions, and is a piece that was written by a trio of percussionists that live in the San Francisco Bay Area. Absolutely fine drummers, percussionists, one of which, are there any Tower of Power fans in the crowd? Okay, so the drum set player, during the prolific era of Tower of Power, and then now currently is David Garibaldi. He and a guy named Michael Sparrow and Jesus Diaz came together for a group called Talking Drums, and it's, you take three virtuoso drummer percussionists, put them together, and they come up with some really cool stuff. So we took that transcription of theirs, and Isaiah Pierce, Nico Owen, and Sage Vickers and they got together and basically learned that transcription, but then just jammed on all these different patterns and rhythms that are from the Caribbean, a lot of the different traditional rhythms, and then they added a lot of their own flair to it. So this piece here actually, instead of having kind of classical percussion roots, has more folklore and popular music roots. And it's a lot of fun. These guys, I think, had a lot of fun putting it together and doing a lot of their, putting their own signature on it. So while this piece titled Ochosi was written by Talking Drums, these guys expanded out and about in their own direction. While they are finishing their setup, I'm gonna jump ahead and talk about the piece that will be after this a little bit. And the piece after this is titled The Invisible Men. And many years ago, I was playing in a percussion quartet that was going to perform at a music festival, and I was sent the score to this piece. It was a silent film. I didn't know much about it. And I show up to the rehearsals and discovered I had like a million things to learn in a short amount of time, and I fell in love with the piece. And tonight, thanks to this hall and the lights and this projector, we'll be able to do that piece. I'll talk more about it as we go. Looks like they're getting closer. Yeah, Sage will need some place to sit, so that's good. Awesome. How are we doing, Nico? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to these guys to perform Ochosi. So we're going to turn the stage over for the last time before intermission, and I promise you this next piece is unlike anything that you have likely seen at one of our concerts. We've done pieces before where we performed to a video, but this one here, every last detail is perfectly choreographed. So this piece titled The Invisible Men is a piece that was commissioned by a Sydney, Australia-based percussion group titled Synergy Percussion, and they're considered one of the great percussion quartets in the world. And they commissioned one of their fellow countrymen, a Sydney-based composer by the name of Nigel Westlake. And you have probably actually heard some of Nigel's music if any of you saw the IMAX Antarctica. Any of you see that? No, okay. Well, what about Pig? Any of you seen the Pig movie? All right, there we go. So he wrote the soundtrack to Babe and a bunch of other soundtracks, and has gone quite in that direction. But Synergy had a very productive relationship with Nigel Westlake, where many of my favorite percussion pieces and my students' favorite pieces. A few years ago, we did another one titled Follow Centric Lecture that was all based on, is a piece based on a painting by Paul Klee. We did that, projected a bunch of Paul Klee paintings during that one. Well, this piece, Nigel wanted to do something different, and so he went and he found a 1906 French film, silent film, and decided to score it for the percussion quartet. And when he was looking for a piece, he was originally looking for something that was Australian in nature, but that proved difficult. So he went to Canberra to the Sound and Video Archive, the National Sound and Video Archive, and found this particular French silent film, and that was part of a Southern Hemisphere-based family entitled, I believe they were the Cork Hills, that travel throughout the world, really, during that era. And this particular film was part of their novelty show that they put on. So Nigel found that connection to this film, scored it for a percussion quartet for Synergy. And what happens in this piece is the percussionists are all on a click track. So you're going to see before they start, they're all going to put in headphones, and throughout the piece, they're listening to a click, literally tap, 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 tap. As the meter and the tempo changes to what's happening in the film, the click track changes, and what they play has to still stay with that track. So every single bit of information, every sound that you hear is specifically notated in the score to happen at an exact time that relates to what happens in the film. And so, as you're watching the film, you may get a little lost in watching and just hearing a normal soundtrack, but bear in mind that these guys are actually playing every single cue that you hear. We have a couple of sounds that are actually triggered electronically. They have an electronic trigger back here. So there's a wolf whistle that they do, some breaking glass they do on that, and some hand claps that are on that, but everything else is acoustic. And you can see as Logan here is plugging in his in-ears, it's an interesting piece because you're playing with a quartet, but you're somewhat separated from them. You're sort of in your own little world with that click. And I find this to be pedagogically very important. When you go into a recording studio, or if you play a show on Broadway or in Vegas, most of what you're doing is oftentimes on a click. And so you're playing to this steady pulse so that the acrobats or whatever's happening on stage, all the time you can be exact every single night, every single performance. And so it's very pedagogically sound for these students to get that opportunity to play to a click, also be aware of their surroundings, aware of their instruments, and multitasking is kind of ridiculous. There's over 50 instruments that the four of them will play. That includes numerous whistles. So oftentimes while they're actually playing, they've commented a few times about how close they've gotten to passing out from blowing all these different whistles while also playing through the score here. And like I said, this has become one of my favorite pieces. In fact, I'm finishing, fingers crossed, my doctorate at University of Nevada, Las Vegas next semester, and this piece is actually thank you. This piece is actually going to be my document, and it's a performer's guide to how to actually set up this piece, prepare this piece. As I mentioned before, the last piece that Nico and the guys played, I was thrown into kind of this last-minute situation of trying to figure out how to put this together with not a whole lot of help, and so hopefully this document will provide other educators players and professional percussion groups the opportunity to put this piece together with less of a headache. In addition to all the playing, there's a lot of technology that right now Cody is trying to sort out, and fingers crossed that works as well. So in addition to the projection of the film, they have to run the click, and they have to boost the level of that click that goes through a 4-channel mixer to 4 different people. And so just, again, a lot of little moving pieces. I'm going to be actually taking these guys on a little tour with this piece and some other things next semester, culminating in Las Vegas for my lecture recital. And in addition to playing on the lecture recital, they're going to play a completely different piece on the UNLV Percussion Ensemble concert that they do with their moving light lab there. It's all the high-speed lighting systems that get used on the Vegas Strip, get tested out in this particular center. So these guys will be playing on that concert next semester out there as well. Excuse me while I check in and see how things are going. How are things going? How are we doing, Cody? Excellent. Okay. All right. While they're finishing that up, actually, I mentioned UNLV. The sirens that we used are actually kind of difficult to come by, and very expensive. One of them, if you saw the green siren that Isaiah was playing, actually saw action in World War II. It came off of a Jeep, and I was lucky enough to be able to borrow all those sirens from UNLV, from the percussion studio, and a big thanks to them. Also, Ionisation, one of the, I think, the great scholars, and has done a ton of research. One of my teachers at UNLV, Professor Gary Cook, and he was very, very kind enough to actually loan me his personal score and entrust me with it. I actually sent it certified mail back to him because I was very nervous, but he had all the notations that I needed to get through that particular piece and the rehearsals, and so I'm very indebted to the faculty there. And more so than that, I'm indebted to my students who have put in a ton of time and continue to put in a ton of time as I stall up here. So I'll tell you a little bit about what's on the second half. The second half will start, Ben Paden is a composition and a percussion performance double major, and this is his last year with us. And we'll be heading off to do a master's degree in composition and continuous percussion studies as well. And he wrote a piece inspired by Ionis Xenakis' Oka, and it was a piece for 3 djembes that we performed last spring. He wrote a piece inspired by that, and Xenakis became a big inspiration for Ben in many ways. Ben's father's an architect. Xenakis was an architect. The music's very mathematic and a completely different compositional system, and Ben really dove into that. So if you're interested in more on that, he actually gave a presentation at Student Scholar Days, and that's online thanks to Mark Schoenecker and his staff. So you can go and find on YouTube Ben's presentation on that. The lights are dimming. I'm going to step out of the way and actually sit down here and enjoy this myself. We'll take a 10-minute intermission after The Invisible Man. Joining us on the second half here, but we're going to start, as I mentioned previously, with Benjamin Paden, a senior composition and percussion performance major's latest composition titled Xerxes. And as I mentioned before, this piece was inspired by Xenakis' Oko, a piece for 3 djembes and a bass drum and a few other things. This particular piece, he took the darbuka, Mediterranean, Middle Eastern, North African, so to speak, instrument, and he chose 3 of them that are metal, and you'll see why. And then we added he added 4 different tantans and gongs to this piece. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Cody Fricke, Logan Helmstadt, and Paden to play Xerxes. we like to do on this fall concert is give the drum line one last go for the season of playing their instruments. So starting in August, these guys, and if you live near campus, you know this, around August, they start rehearsing. And here we are on December 10th, and this will be the last time that they play these particular instruments. Many of these guys are doing drum corps, indoor drum line, WGI line, altitude percussion based in Colorado Springs. Nico's actually one of the instructors there, and as I mentioned, several of these guys are actually marching that group. Again, this is their last performance. They're doing a piece that Ben wrote as well. One of their pieces of the season. And I mentioned Ben has an affection for Xerxes. Well, the title of this piece is Xerxes spelled backwards. So I'm going to turn it over to the drum line. atmosphere for the rest of this concert, and we're going to do some traditional tunes from the islands of Trinidad and Tobago. I can never decide which way to say that. And I do want to point out this first tune that we're going to do is titled Mary Ann, and it's a traditional, I'm sorry, this one is Gene and Dinah. I'm sorry, Gene and Dinah. And this tune, let me back up, we were really lucky this semester to have an MFA student by the name of Annalisa Connor-Miser come and join us. And she's actually from Trinidad. She grew up singing this song. She grew up playing these pans. And she was able to join us for most of the semester despite getting together her graduating thesis, which I want to point out is over in the Cloyd Smith Gallery right now. And so her opening, I believe, was on Friday, but the piece is, the collection is titled Life's Cycles. Sadly, she had to return to her home for a family emergency and couldn't be with us tonight to play, but we want to dedicate our performance to Annalisa and her family. And again, I encourage you all to head over to the art department and check out her ceramics and enjoy her exhibition. I believe it is up until the 19th, if I'm not mistaken. Is Ginny Goronsky in here? Can you confirm? That's correct. Okay. Awesome. So we're going to play some steel pan for you. we're going to do 2 traditional tunes from the islands, and then 1 tune by the Latin jazz master Poncho Sanchez, which will feature Nico Owen on congas. That'll be the last one we do from that set. They're just going to make a couple little minor height adjustments on the pans here, and we will get underway with Marianne, which was the first pan tune I learned. It's one of those standards that everyone knows. Steampipe Rhumba, and then being Sabroso. Are we doing close, close? Actually quite a nice night for December, but trying to find your way into the building may have been a challenge, but we appreciate you finding your way in. We're going to do, the closing thing is kind of a newer thing for us, doing a Brazilian percussion group. And one of our students up here that you've heard from quite a bit tonight, Nigel, and he spent 8 months in Brazil recently. And what he was doing down there is he was teaching rudimental drumming and a variety of other things, but also studying percussion and Brazilian drumming and that sort of thing, and the culture. So he came back here and we put together rehearsals on Wednesday nights where in addition to us all working on the drumming, we worked on the language, worked on Portuguese, we worked on capoeira, which which is the martial arts dance that a lot of the music that you'll hear tonight on the last three tunes, sometimes like the instruments and that sort of thing are used to accompany. And then we decided for tonight to actually take one of the standard jazz tunes that you often hear with jazz combos and that sort of thing, and we invited Miss Angela Prentiss to come and sing with a percussion batteria, so like this, a big group of drummers. So we decided to give a bass player and piano player to help her out a little bit. Here comes the piano. And they're going to play a little bit of background and give you a bossa nova, which is kind of the lighter style, and then we're going to finish it tonight with a bang with two numbers. I'm going to actually, because pronunciations, particularly in Portuguese, not my forte, I'm going to, for all of that, I'm going to turn it over to Nico, who has been really a great leader for these students, as has been Paden, who has directed a lot of the things as well. I also want to thank Marcos LeBlanc, who was a student here, now is the band director in Del Norte, who has played with our community and university steel band. And when I've had to miss a couple rehearsals, he graciously stepped in to cover those rehearsals. So I just wanted to take a moment to thank those folks. So I'm going to turn it over to Nico.
How's everybody doing? How's everybody doing? So this is the part of the concert where we can respond and make some loud noises and dance and get up, and there's actually a surprise for you guys in the last concert, excuse me, the last show. But right now we're going to play, just like Mr. Bill said, we're going to be playing some bossa nova, which actually was America's response to samba. So when samba came to the United States, influenced with jazz in the 1950s, we have a man by the name of Antônio Carlos Jobim, who wrote that. And actually, the original track was called A Garota de Ipanema, right? The girl from Ipanema, same exact thing. But it was translated since, and you're going to see a lot of cool stuff this evening. So we have our Brazilian percussion ensemble. Let's give them a round of applause. our next chart, we have a piece called Revolta Olodum. This is from a different part of Brazil. This is from Bahia. Bahia is considered the most African of all the Americas. So you go there, they have a direct influence of the African drumming, West African drumming, and capoeira, and all these dances and martial arts that were formed there. It's very rich in culture, very rich in music. You're going to see a little bit of that right now. All right. I present to you Mr. Ty Smith on lead vocals.
Ruralista, labrador, Palestina, Piauí, El Salvador, patria sertaneja, independente, Antônio Conselheiro, época dos presidentes, Juninha Alagoas, comandou, sempre aliás, verdador. Sou mais encabeada, sou malé, essas reais de verdade. Oh, Cristo, marina bonita, não pode chamar. E a minha dor, será real, e a minha dor.
Liking that? Right. Excellent. For our last tune, we have, excuse my voice. For our last tune, we have a maracatu. Now, maracatu is from the northeast of Brazil. And basically what happened was, back in the times of slavery came to northeastern Brazil. And they would have these election ceremonies for a king. So once the slaves came over, they would elect a king. And the music that was played was called maracatu. So now, they have giant parades, giant festivals, the biggest parties you can think of, and making maracatu and having a great time. So, you guys are involved in this one. We're gonna have a lot of fun on this one. So, clear the aisles and get ready to dance. All right, here we go. We on vocals.
Com os nossos tambores, e a dama de passageiro, me estandaste brilho, porque na sanago. Estrela, Brilhante cantar, pontos forços nossos tambores, rufa, caixa, mirolinganza, Joventina, erodina, não deixes tambor se calar. Joventina, erodina, não deixes tambor se calar. You